Shruti, what does it mean?
So the name means listening or hearing, but it also means historically the divine revelation. And Shruti is used to refer to the Vedas.
Vedas. And you are interested in Bhagavad Gita, which is also inspired by Vedas.
Yes, the Bhagavad Gita has been the discourse given by Lord Krishna as part of Mahabharata war.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So we have some connection between Vedas and Bhagavad Gita.
sir, given that the Brahmanical religion draws its tenets mostly from the Vedas, from that I would say that yes, there can be a connection between the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, there is plenty of it. All right, tell me about yourself. We'll talk about that a little later.
Sir, I come from Jharkhand. I am BA Honours History from Miranda House, University of Delhi. My strengths are that I like to be social and I can keep calm in crisis situations.
Calm in crisis situation. All right. Why must you insist on this point?
Sir, because there have been certain incidents and I find that I can be a problem solver at times.
All right, let me give you a problem. You are a district magistrate and your junior has been hit by his junior, and they both come to you complaining about each other, and your senior says, don't make this as a public. So at that situation, what you have got? Your junior hit by his junior, and your senior says, you as a junior, don't disclose it to anybody else. It will affect the morale of the people. How do you handle the situation as a district magistrate?
Sir, the situation here is not the matter to be disclosed to anyone, but the problem to be solved at the moment. Since it is about two of my juniors and they being in conflict with each other, so I would try to make both of them understand and look at the problem, that what initiated the fight between them, what happened that the one hit the another person. So once that part is resolved, it would be best that the integrity of the job is maintained and the junior, my junior respects his senior, because that's how the hierarchy works and he must respect it. So
Not reporting in the police because been hit by the person.
Sir, the degree of the hit I would like to know here. We are talking about
Slapping.
Sir, I do not think that this is the thing to be reported to the police. Since I am a district magistrate, I can handle it on my own at my level itself.
All right, all right. So coming out of that, I was a little curious about seeking your opinion about rewriting of history, A, and B is that writing history of the missing links that we have got. Geographical missing links are there, periodic missing links are there in Indian history. Which of the two you would like to give preference and why?
So dealing with the first question, the rewriting of the history, sir, I feel that history is a continuous process, and since it is an interpretation of the past, there has to be a rewriting of the history continuously. Every generation needs its own historians to assess the facts again, to analyze the past records again. Coming to the second question, that is the missing links that we have had in the history writing. So this can happen due to a lack of the sources, since if I take the example of the fact whether the Aryans did write the Vedas or not, or the Vedic religion, it is said that in literature it is there, but archaeologically we do not have the very presence of the Aryans. There have been NBPW sites, artifacts, but yes, historians are trying to recover facts, artifacts, and try to build a history upon that. So as and when we find more sources, the historians on their level are trying to trace the links on a better way.
All right. One very personal question. Why
Yes.
Miranda House should get #1 status of college in the country? What is so special about it?
So it is very special and it deserves to be #1. It has got the #1 rank for I think 3 to 4 years back to back. Sir, here I would like to mention the things that I have learned from Miranda House. First of all, it gives a space to speak openly about things. The things that I were not comfortable back coming from a place, a small town of Giridih, Jharkhand. So getting exposure to stalwarts, attending talks by national and international faculties. And one very good initiative that was taken by Miranda House was in terms of the physically disabled students. We had a system of QR codes placed in every classroom, and the students had an app installed on their phones through which they can easily trace how far they are from a room. And this was a very good innovation and a step taken by the Miranda House. So it deserves to be number one.
Sir.
Shruti, let's talk about Bhagavad Gita.
Sure, sir.
The operational shloka is about Karmanyeva Adhikaraste. It can also be interpreted to mean that you don't need any motivation and everything has to be done dispassionately without expecting any reward. This runs contrary to the current, let's say conventional wisdom, which is to motivate the worker and stakeholders by offering incentives, offering rewards, prestige, and the rest. So how do you explain the conundrum?
Sir, I would like to say that it is not a conundrum. When I look at the shloka Karmaniya Vadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, it says that I am entitled to my duties, but I am not entitled to the fruit of my action. It says that I do not control the fruit, means the attachment to the material thing should not be there. It does not mean that I should not have a goal. I should have a goal. I should be goal oriented. I should focus. I should have a strategy. And it lists the strategy towards moksha. We have the bhakti yoga, karma yoga, the jnana yoga that lists the strategy towards the moksha. It is itself trying to say that yes, the ultimate goal is nirvana, is moksha. So in the present context, when we talk about incentives being given to the people, it is to motivate them, but ultimately you are not who controls your incentive. I can do my duty at the best level from my side. And whatever happens, the fruits of the action that come, whenever it comes, I can analyze it, work upon it, and move ahead.
Right. Let's move on to history. That is your optional subject. Now, India's history is full of revelations of the religious kind, new sects being formed, new philosophies being proffered. Can you describe 3 seminal moments in India's history where the new ideologies, new religious directions were given, and how impactful have these been?
So tracing from the ancient period, it was the 6th century BC when there was an upheaval of thoughts coming, and we have 2 religions, Buddhism and Jainism, coming up, challenging the society that's there at the present, at the then time. So these 2 religions provided an outlet to the lower caste, to the women, to explore their potential, their religious potential. So at that point of time, it played a very important role in connecting the society and giving them a way forward to look forward to the situation, and an upliftment to the Kshatriyas too, since both of these religions were led by the Kshatriyas. Coming to the medieval period, we have 2 movements which were very significant, the Bhakti movement and the Sufi movement, which were very significant again in the context that it is placed. The Islamic rule being there, not Islamic rule, I would say, the Islamic ruler but not the rule. So the Sufi movement and Bhakti movement play a role in binding the population together, giving them the idea of devotion to God and moving ahead. Coming to the modern period, we have stalwarts like Raja Ram Mohan Roy coming up with the idea of Brahmo Samaj and Brahmoism, and how everyone should have the right to be a priest, and not refuting the idol worship, focusing on the oneness of all. So yes, these 3 are the different movements that I traced from the ancient period to the modern period.
I don't think independence movement with Mahatma Gandhi's fight against untouchability, women's emancipation deserve to be mentioned.
Sir, that can be considered as a movement, but not in the form of a sect or a different religious movement per se. Mahatma Gandhi ji did play a very important role against the untouchability, leading the movement against leading the temple entry movements, and also getting the women in the national movement. So yes, that was a very important part, but not to be seen as a religious movement per se.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Shruti, being a student of history, uh, I'll bring you very close to the history in the sense that as it is happening today, the history is happening for the last couple of years. Talking of separatism by some of the Sikh separatists, at the very outset it is very obvious that this is a movement which is being handled by outsiders. And majority of the Indian population, that is Indian Sikhs, are not in favor of it. I would like you to draw this entire thing from the historical perspective as to how this thing was raised, for the demand was raised for the first time. Coming to today, is this demand really for a separate state, or is it for redressal of certain grievances? And if yes, then what are those grievances?
Sir, the Khalistan movement that we are talking about, that emerged in the 1970s and the 1980s, and then the following Operation Blue Star by the government. I need to look upon the initial stages of the movement since I am not very able to recall it very clearly. But looking at the present movement, the Khalistan movement as it is going presently, I do not see it as a Sikh movement, as a movement to redress the grievances of the Sikhs, as majority of the Indian Sikhs are not in favor of it, and it is somewhere supported by the external forces, because we are not seeing the same demand being raised in the Pakistan side of Punjab, and majority of these demands are being raised by...
Let me just stop you for a moment.
Sure, sir.
What happened at the time of partition? Is there some history to it when India was divided into India and Pakistan? Was there some demand by Sikhs to allow them also have another separate country? Are you aware or not aware?
Sir, in respect of the demand of Sikhs, I need to check it once.
All right, we'll go somewhere else now. Now, any 5 factors which come to your mind, important ones, which have raised India's prestige in the world, and I am not talking of India's influence in the foreign policy.
So shall I take a moment to think?
Sure.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, can I trace it from a bit earlier to have the 5 factors?
Go ahead.
Sure, sir. Sir, the first factor that I would like to draw here was the independence movement which was led. Britain had a lot of colonies over the continents of Asia and Africa, and several movements were there. But the non-violent movement led by Mahatma Gandhi ji, played a very important role, and its discussion, its popularity was very spoken about even in UK, USA, everywhere. So after the end of the Second World War, one major reason why countries like USA, France, they were pressurizing Britain to free India was because of the aura of the Gandhiji and the movement that we had. So that was, I consider that as one factor in the emergence of India. Secondly, post-independence, when there was the emergence of the Cold War time, so the stand taken by India as not being aligned and leading a group of nations. So that was again a very important factor where India provided a third pole to the nations to not side with any of the two superpower groups. Thirdly, I would like to highlight the respect that India pays to others' demands and others' concerns. For example,
Okay, thank you, Shruti. I was actually talking of something else. I was talking of India's prestige in economic, social, and other areas, rather than kind of the historical perspective of how its prestige kept going up Mahatma Gandhi onwards. But thank you, well tried.
thank you so much, sir. I'm really sorry.
Shruti,
Yes.
we see during the course of history, around 12th century, there was advent of Turkish rulers in India. And authors of the time indicate that India did not have any tradition of history writing, right? They used to indicate Indians who didn't know how to write history. Why did they have such a observation about India?
So this observation comes from a thought about history writing, how history is written. When we see the Persian history writing, the Tariq tradition, it is based on a set of, it is based on writing history in a more of a chronicle way, listing the rulers, what they did. But historians have traced that the essence of the history writing, the historical consciousness, have been traced to ancient India, to the Itihas Puran tradition, to also Smritis and the Vedas. But their history needs to be priced out. We need to separate the myth, the fiction from the history. But coming to the chronicle form of the history writing, in that also we see some kind of biasness, some kind of fiction getting into the history writing. So that could be one reason.
Okay. India had many travelers, right, from Megasthenes to Bernier and Tavernier, right?
Sure.
But this Al-Biruni had a very peculiar kind of observation about India in its knowledge. What was that?
So this observation of Al-Biruni pertained to the caste system, how it was operating, the position of the women also, and the food and practices.
This was general observation. But
Sure, sir.
he had a very peculiar observation regarding knowledge and exchange of knowledge Indians used to have with the world. He's the only one who has observed so.
So the exact
He said that
observation.
Indians do have good knowledge, but they do not exchange it with the rest of the world.
Sir, I'm not aware of this exact expression, but to elaborate on this, that why he might have said
Yes.
it. So if we see that the conversations that Al-Biruni had after he came to India and the sources of his book Kitabul Hind that went into making, he interacted with the Brahmins and the local people, and it was mostly that niche upper class people that he spoke to. But I think he missed the fact that how Indians have exchanged the knowledge through trade and through trade ties. The idea of zero, the arithmetics have traveled to
Right. So can you
Asia
give
back.
some example that Indian used to exchange knowledge with the rest of the world? Some examples? Mathematics, for example.
Yes, sir, we have the idea of zero, Pythagoras theorem traveling.
See, we had this knowledge, but did we exchange it with the rest of the world?
Sir, it's exact mention in the history writing or the sources
No problem.
not.
As far as back as 800 years before back, we had Razia Sultan as the ruler, and she was opposed by her nobles because she was a woman. Do you think things have changed now? We had only one female prime minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi. Don't have any female PM after her.
Sir, things have changed now because presently we are a democratic republic and our constitution gives this right to every citizen to hold a post as high as prime minister. And when Indira Gandhi ma'am was there, she was respected and she took very important decisions. So I think that the society has moved very, very forward in terms from Razia Sultana's time to what we are today. Our president is Mrs. Draupadi Murmu. So we are very proud of it.
Thank you, Shruti.
Thank you, sir.
Shruti, you were talking about the rewriting of the history.
Sure, sir.
Well, it is the time needed. But do you think that the names of the cities, names of the roads are also being changed? Does it have any historical significance, or we are overruling historical significance?
Sir, history is a process in making. What we are doing today becomes history for the generation 200 years ago. So, in respect of the changing of the city names and changing of the roads, I think we need to look at every situation separately. Here I would like to draw two examples. The first is changing of the name from Rajpath to Kartavyapath. I find that very relevant because the idea of the Raja and Rajpat is no more relevant today. And recognizing the Kartavya, the duty, is very significant. But at the same time, the changing of the name of the Mughal gardens to Amrit Udyan, I do not find it very historically significant because the idea of the Mughal gardens is built in the Charbagh form, the flowing of the waters, the idea of the heaven and the Mughals as the Mughals drew it. So when we change the name from Mughal garden to Amrit Udyan, the idea does not reflect it very well. So on a perspective to perspective basis, we need to say it. But yes, when we recognize certain contribution by the past and the history, in that sense, it can be considered as fine.
So who should be considered as the final authority for changing the name, because whatever the decisions are taken in the parliament again are being challenged in the courts. So should the Chief Justice of India should be considered the topmost authority to decide things for every matter, because things are so much disputing now.
So when things are in dispute, that shows that we have a functioning democracy, a functioning civil society, when people are able to exercise their dissent too. Coming to the changing of the names, I feel that when it comes from the parliament, a certain set of deliberation and discussion is being done in the civil society, in the media, with the historians too, with the public too, and drawing of the suggestions. So, and then certain set of changing of name is recommended and then the proposal goes forward. When it is challenged in the court, that is a right that is given to the citizens which they can very well exercise it, and if it goes to the higher authority, it's up to the higher authority very respectfully to decide on it. So seeing it in that manner, yes, the Chief Justice of India and the judiciary, since it acts as a check and balance on whatever is going on in the country, can be seen as the final authority in the matter. But the authority is again drawn from the people itself, from the constitution. Thank you, sir.
All right, we're coming towards the end of it, Shruti. If you got any area that you prepared and you want us to ask more question.
Sir, I would like to be questioned a bit on my home state, Jharkhand.
All right. When was the first demand of a separate statehood made in Jharkhand as student of history? Some people say it's older than the demand of independence of India.
Yes, sir, it was. It can be traced to the movement of the Birsa Munda. Some trace it to very back, but it is actually after the independence when Jaipal Singh Munda raised the demand of the people of Jharkhand being a separate state.
State was even independence earlier than that.
Sir, I'll check it once, surely.
All right, we stop it here.